Well, good evening. My name is Greg Ferris. I am president of the Forney ISD Board of Trustees, and I hereby call this Board of Trustees meeting to order. It is 7:01 p.m. I do certify a quorum is present and that the meeting has been posted in time and manner required by law. Our monthly meetings are open to the public. Although these meetings are public, comments and questions are confined to the designated time for citizens to address the board. At this time, we'd like to start off with item 3A with our introduction and our welcome and our invocation by Mr. David Ivey. Let me read his bio as he steps up here. Reverend Ivey is the second career pastor and a graduate of Forney High. David received his Bachelor of Arts in English and History from Baylor University and earned a Master's of Divinity from Bright Divinity School. He was ordained to the ministry in 2007, began his service at First Presbyterian in Forney in February of 2015. David's son, Sam, is a graduate of Forney High in 2019 and attends Austin College. He has two daughters, Sarah and Sophia, who both attend Forney schools. David is also the founder and director of Forney Community Ministries. First Presbyterian Church of Forney is instrumental in the coordination and management of the Uniform Exchange Program for Forney students. They provide many hours of volunteering their time and resources to the Forney family. Without their help, the first resource fair would not have been such a success, provided 300 backpacks with supplies and supports, and coordinated the event. We're thankful for David Ivey and First Presbyterian Church as a valuable member of our Forney family. Would you please rise as he leads us our invocation?
I invite those who wish to join me in prayer. Source of all life and giver of all good gifts, you have given us minds to understand, hands to serve, and hearts to love. May we be found faithful stewards of your grace. Thank you for our schools and for the gift of public education. Thank you for Dr. Terry and our school board. Give them wisdom to serve in the best interests of our students. We ask that you would bless all those who make our schools function. And especially this day, we give you thanks for those who are charged with keeping our schools safe. May our administrators create a culture for learning. May the teachers and coaches inspire and motivate. And may students be creative thinkers who know that they matter and that they have something to give to the world. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
You may be seated. We thank you, David. Thanks for being here. He was here last month as we recognized some of our volunteers, so I appreciate you coming back again in your prayers this evening. Moving on then to item 3B was our pledges. We will have at this time Michael Jung to introduce our secondary student of the month from North Forney, and following that, Ms. McElroy, who will introduce our elementary student of the month. If you will step forward. Are your students with you?
Tyler Henry, if you want to come on up. Just stand right here. All right, thank you, Dr. Terry and board, for this opportunity to show off one of our students. It is with great pleasure that I present to you our true North Star of the month, Mr. Tyler Henry. Tyler is a junior this school year, and he is interested in aeronautical and astronautical engineering. He plans to attend an HBCU, historically black college or university, specifically Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama, one day, and eventually own his own research facility. He is fascinated with black history, black empowerment, human rights, and leadership. Tyler is proud to have roots in New Orleans and to have lived in a significant portion of his life in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His overall goal in life is to be a great husband and an even better father. The remainder of this year and next year, Tyler will continue to be a leader in Student Council, the National Honor Society, our Black Student Association. More specifically, he plans to run for office in these organizations as secretary and or president. Most recently, Tyler served as our MC for our annual Culture of Excellence honoring Black History Month program, and he was outstanding. And he's a sharp dresser as well. Tyler was selected as our Student of the Month because he consistently represents the 3 true north pillars of excellence, empower, and educate. Each month, teachers recommend students according to one of the pillars, and Tyler is often recommended by several teachers and consistently honored as a top 20 student for his character. According to his advisory and Stuco sponsor, Tyler does an excellent job in everything he does, but specifically in his role as a freshman mentor. Tyler is engaging and draws people in, making them feel loved, valued, and important. In Tyler's advisor class, he always has a crowd of freshmen surrounding him, and he is completely engaged in building genuine relationships and empowering his fellow students. His English teacher believes that Tyler is constantly checking in with other students to support them and staying on task. He is also empowering by constantly staying engaged in class. He stated his positive energy is contagious. Other teachers have stated that Tyler always strives to learn, grow, and give his best no matter what. But most importantly, Tyler is invested in his education every single day. Just on a side note, I know Tyler and I have had many just conversations and planning in how to create that true north culture that we're wanting. And so we've spent many minutes and hours just planning through that, and I know he's dedicated to making sure that the school is the best place it can be. So please join me in congratulating Tyler Henry as our hashtag True North Star Student of the Month.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Terry. It is my pleasure to introduce to you tonight our Johnson Elementary Student of the Month, Miss Addison Smith. Addison is the daughter of Zane and Tara Smith. She's big sister to Landon, a kindergartner at Johnson Elementary, and little sister Peyton, who is 3 years old. In preparing for tonight, Addison and I met and had a nice conversation, and I learned a lot about her interest and some of her great accomplishments. Addison is very, very proud of her parents. Her mom is a teacher at Warren Middle School. She teaches math. And she's also very proud of her dad, Zane, who's a firefighter for the city of Forney. He drives an engine, I believe. And she said that is very, very cool. Addison loves to play soccer. She's a member of the Solar soccer team and enjoys traveling with her team in the Dallas area. Her position on the team is left mid, which I learned a lot about. Addison has big plans to play soccer at Warren Middle School and Forney High School. She enjoys watching collegiate soccer, as well as attending SMU women's soccer games, where she actually got to go onto the field and meet some of the players. Professionally, her favorite soccer player is Alex Morgan with Team USA. Addison's favorite subject in school is math. She loves to solve problems and sees math problems as puzzles to solve. She enjoys playing outside with her brother and sister, as well as playing board games with her family, and she's looking forward to her birthday in just a few weeks on March the 16th. Addison, one of your teachers is here today, Miss Bella Bradick, and this is what she had to say. Addison is an amazing young lady. She is honest, hardworking, and compassionate toward others. Even when something is difficult for her, she maintains a positive attitude and pushes through until she gets it done. So thank you for letting us recognize Addison Smith.
Would you rise for our pledges, please?
Can we draw our attention to our nation's flag? I pledge to flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
You and your families, please join us up front. It's always a great time to recognize our students, and we'll continue on here with more student recognitions. Moving on with item number 4A. At this time, we'd like to recognize Mr. Weaver, Director of Athletics, who will introduce some athletic student recognitions.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, and members of the board. It's always my pleasure to recognize students in Forney ISD who represent our school district at the state level of competition. Tonight, we have 6 students who represented us at the UIL State Swim and Dive competition in Austin at the Lee and Joe Jamel UT Swim Center there in Austin a couple of weeks ago. And this happens to be the 3rd year in succession that our swim and dive program has represented our school district at the state level. As these young ladies and gentlemen who qualified for state, as I call your name, if you would please come up here and join us at the front. And I'll start with our swim and dive coaches, Mr. Jason and Ms. Cassie Thompson. Beginning with our divers, these are in the 1-meter dive competition, Ms. Sky Hoover. Micah Smith. Bryce Benson. Maddie Bello-Bradick. And Cody Sin. And swimmer in the 500 free, Andrew Gilbert. Already at the front, we have a young lady and a gentleman who qualified for the finals this year. The swim and dive competition takes place over 2 days, and of course those students who perform well enough in the preliminaries are able to move on to the finals, and when they do move on to the finals, this is the first year that any Forney ISD students have done this, it automatically qualifies the school program for a state ranking. So I know our coaches were very excited about that. Ms. Sky Hoover and Mr. Micah Smith were finalists. We'd like to invite our parents or family, if you would come up, we'd love to get a photograph, please.
Moving on to item number 3 here. We'll go to the Vase State qualifiers. Mr. Mario Luna, Fine Arts Director.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. You'll see up there we have the Forney High, the North Forney students. We'll actually recognize the North Forney students next month. But for tonight, can I have our artists from Forney High School please come up? And I'll tell you a few about what they did. So we had 152 works of art competed February 8th at the Texas Art Education Association Region 10 East VASE competition. They competed against 32 other high schools. And from Forney High, advancing to the state level is Chloe Aparato, Nicholas Terriot, Mandris Lopez, Claudia Putman, Kayla Hubbard, Lauren Barbie, Eva Wortham, and we had 2 alternates that were Michelle Joseph and Skylar Perkins. Miss Adair, can you please come up here? And they'll be going to the state contest at San Marcos High School in April 24th and 25th. So congratulations to these students, and moms and dads and Dr. Campbell, if you want to come up for a picture.
That concludes our student recognitions. We'll move on to item 4B for staff recognitions. And at this time, I turned over to Ms. Kim Morsack, Chief of Information, Innovative, and Technology Services.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Each year, communication departments attend the Texas School Public Relations Conference. This year, Forney ISD competed. They received a gold star for photography, 4 gold stars for marketing and informational videos, and in addition, Forney ISD won the highest award in the state for school communications. That award is the Platinum Award. It honors a year-long project that exhibits the highest standards of excellence according to research and planning. And Forney ISD won that award for Forney Family. So at this time, I'd like to ask Executive Director of Communications, Kristen Zassapel. I think Bubba Willis is here. He is our videographer and video producer. And is Dana here? Dana Curry? As part of our communications team, Dana does all of our outreach, community outreach. Am I missing anyone? Larry Coker, our Director of Communications. Sorry, Larry. Oh, and since they're all up there, I guess I'll take the picture.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna try that screen. Get behind something funny.
Moving on to item 5, donations. At this time, Mr. Neil Weaver, Director of Athletics, will present to us a donation for Forney High School Athletics.
Thank you again, Mr. Ferris. Members of the board, I know this is not under the title of recognition, but I would be remiss not to mention that there are many, many unrecognized parents and volunteers in our school district. A lot of those certainly are working with our booster clubs and our parent organizations week in and week out. In this case, the Forney Softball Booster Club has requested the ability to donate $7,295 to Forney High School. This will little known fact, probably the University Interscholastic League does not allow booster clubs or parent organizations to pay for any sort of travel costs directly. So they have to make a donation to the school so that it can be processed through school district processes. And as you know, our Forney High School softball team is fairly elite, and with an elite status often comes the need to gather elite competition. They attend, among other events, an invitational-only tournament in Dripping Springs, which is a very high level of competition at that tournament. Our softball team currently on this season is ranked #1 in the state of Texas. They've defeated the #4 ranked team in the United States of America. They're 11-0 and working toward district. So the requested Booster Club donation would offset travel costs to some of those elite events as they go throughout their season.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion from the board?
So moved.
Mr. Carroll? A second? Ms. Dobbs? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll begin to item 6. We'll take a brief recess here for a couple minutes, and then we'll reconvene back in just a moment. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call this meeting back to order. We'll pick up where we left off with item number 7, reports. We'll start with the next 4 are reports only and require no action, starting with our 7A, monthly financial reports. Mr. John Chase.
In your board book for review. The revenues for the month is $22.4 million. It's quite a large amount for this month, as you might expect. We have our pretty major tax collections going on at the end of January. Taxes are delinquent. We still have a little bit, as I pointed out in the background memo, that we normally collect slightly more than that as a percentage of our budget goes this time of year. I think maybe I didn't directly confirm this with the tax office, but I think they may be a little bit behind on processing them because in early February we got a substantial amount more of our tax collections. So by the end of February we should be right on target back with our tax collections where they normally are at this time of year. The expenditures for the month was $8.7 million. Year-to-date revenue is $70.9 million, or 66% of the amount estimated. And again, that's slightly lower than it has been in previous years by about 4% or so, but for the reasons that I've already described. Year-to-date expenditures is right at $60 million. That's 57% of the amount appropriated, and that's pretty well on target for this time of year as well. Moving on to debt service, revenue collection for the month is $11.3 million. We had no expenditures. Next month we'll have our interest payments on our debt will show up here, and then we'll be pretty much closing that fund out for the year. Year-to-date revenue recognized at this point is $19.2 million, or 79% of the amount estimated. Again, we're about 10% lower than we normally are this time of year for the reasons of just, I think there's a little bit of a lag between the time that it's collected out of the tax office and then getting processed and sent over here. And the expenditures year-to-date was 15.2, and that's 71% of the amount appropriated, and that's pretty well right on target for where we'd see this time of year. And finally, the cash and investments on hand at the end of January, total out of the general fund, food service, debt service, capital projects was $75.6 million. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I hear none. We'll move on to item 7B, detailed summary of finance update.
So this time of year, we generally about 3 times a year we talk about the summaries of finance, and this is the reporting that the state gives us to show what the school district is entitled to for state aid to operate our school system on. And so normally this time of year, at the end of February, they update the summaries of finances with the student enrollment data that we send to them in October. They're a little bit behind this year. As we'll go and we'll look at the report itself. There's not really any changes between the legislative payment estimate or the district planning estimate, at this point because there has been no changes to that report other than the fact that they have updated our property tax values, which is something new for this year that they haven't done in past years. As you well know, you used to, whenever you'd figured the local share in Tier 1 of the funding formula, it was all based on the prior year's property value to determine what that local share is. Well, this year, this legislative cycle, they changed that, and it's all based on current year. I didn't. When they put the summaries of finances together, they just assumed about a 5.7% increase in property values across the state, and I assumed that, you know, on the legislative planning estimate side, they don't normally go in there and change those data sets. They just that's the number of cash that you can plan on coming to your district, and that there's just a settle up in September whether you're over or underpaid. Well, this year, however, they did change the legislative planning estimate with the updated property value numbers that they got from the comptroller of the state, which basically increases our local share in Tier 1 and decreases the amount of state aid that they're going to be sending us between now and the end of the school year. I mean, we're still entitled to receive what we're entitled to receive. It's just the cash flow that they had sitting out there is not exactly what they said they were going to send at the beginning of the year. They've changed it and modified it to decrease it by our tax revenue. You know, our values went up, you know, almost 18%, as opposed to, you know, they had originally, you know, we're budgeting statewide about 5.7%. So anyway, we'll jump into the report. Again, like I said, there's not even really changes to report here. The legislative planning estimate side and the district planning estimate side, the average daily attendance and all the special populations numbers that you can see down through there, they're all exactly the same. They haven't been updated yet. That refined ADA number is actually higher that they're planning to pay us on that legislative planning estimate side. They won't change that, by the way, but that will get updated whenever our actual numbers get loaded in there on the DPE side of the ledger here. But that's higher than what we actually have in average daily attendance, what we're projecting by, you know, maybe, you know, 80 or 100 kids or something like that. But there's some other changes, some increases like down in special pops in FTEs and special ed, that they actually have a lower amount that we actually have in career technology as well. And so when you get down to it, for them to adjust our property values on both sides of the columns, like you see there, again, like I said, I pointed out earlier that it was in this column and this column both, it was based on a 5.7% increase of the prior year's value, and so now that they actually have current year value, the current tax amount that we taxed on this year and loaded in the formula, it's changing the amount of the rest of the year what they're going to flow to us, and so we're going to get, according to what they're saying right now, is you know, 48.6 or $7 million there, I guess, in M&O collections. And then on the INS aid, the debt service aid that they're sending us right now is about $434,000. When they haven't uploaded the data in the system on the state aid for the INS side of the ledger yet, so that $333,000 number that you see there for EDA will actually be zero at the end of the year, because when they load in our higher state you know, property values in that formula, that's going to decrease that number to zero. But what will change, though, is this down here under the additional state aid for homestead exemptions. You know, back about, I think, 5 or 6 years ago now, when they changed the homestead exemption from $15,000 to $25,000, what they said was, when they're doing that, you know, by reducing the amount of tax collections you were getting in the general fund, they were just making you whole with state aid. Well, it didn't really work that way in the INS formula if you weren't getting any state aid, right? So you just were getting a loss in there. So what they said is that they're going to make you whole in that category. So since we aren't getting any EDA assistance anymore, the difference between what we could have taxed on at $15,000 homestead exemption and now that, you know, that lower amount of $25,000, we're going to earn somewhere around $400,000 in that category. So we should be pretty much even money when it's all said and done on the INS side of the ledger. So again, you know, this is the last page of that report that you had in your board book. In row 7, it would usually show you where our over or under payment would be listed if they had all the student data numbers updated, which they don't. So that's why it says 0 right now. But we'll keep watching the website and checking into it. We run our internal estimates anyway, and so we pretty much know what it's going to be at the end of the year right now based on our student enrollment. I mean, it'll be a few few $100,000, you know, give or take when it's all said and done, but it's not going to be a significant amount from what I'm going to tell you here in just a second. So based on what we're looking at now, you know, whenever I reported to you, I think in the prior board meeting, I told you that I felt like that we would probably be overpaid slightly this year because I was assuming that they weren't going to change that tax value number on the legislative planning estimate side. And by them doing that, I've heard across the state that they're saving about $600 million you know, statewide by changing to everybody's actual tax roll value in that formula. So, but because of doing that, we weren't really going to be entitled to the money anyway. But they're going to lessen the amount of cash that they're going to flow to us throughout the year. And we won't actually get that $1.2 million until the fall, you know, next September. We'll still get it. We just won't get it during the regular, you know, cash flow for the current year. So, you know, we had last year, as you know, we had a over $6 million underpayment last year. You know, this is significantly lower than that. It's still an underpayment. I don't really like it, but it is what it is. So that's the summaries of finance, kind of in a nutshell. If you have any questions specifically, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't hear any questions, so we'll move on then to item C, 7C, Program Expansions Report. Dr. Judy Weber, Chief of Learner Services.
Mr. Ferris and Dr. Terry and school board members, I have some programs that I'm excited to share with the board this evening that we're going to expand. I'll start off with full-day pre-K. House Bill 3 requires that we offer full-day pre-K to all of our students who are eligible. And everyone knows the benefits of providing these early literacy, numeracy skills, and then the social skills our students need when they're young. We did some investigation and found that 2/3 of our neighboring districts have already implemented full-day pre-K, and so that puts us a little bit behind. And because of that, we are going to open a full-day program to the fullest extent possible for the 2020-2021 school year and prepare our students for a successful future. Luckily, with some of our wise planning, we opened up a lot of new rooms that came on with adding those 40 classrooms to 4 of our schools, added 10 classrooms each. This will allow us to expand the number of full-day pre-K classes that we have to offer. And those new rings are providing some great locations to put these classrooms. So what we've done is we looked at 3 of our campuses in particular and looked at their expanded capacities and then looked at some of the projections of enrollment next year. And that gave us a balance of what kind of classrooms we can use at each location. And so now we're in the process of evaluating which programs go where, because there's multiple programs we serve, just regular full-day pre-K plus PPCD and then our dual language. And so we're evaluating which programs fit best at which campuses. So our implementation plan is to go ahead and move forward with our normal pre-K roundup and communication, and then once we bring parents, we still make sure they qualify, and then once they qualify, we will notify them of the location where these different programs are, and so what location their child would be served through our early childhood programs. One of the things we looked at was transportation, and we found that only 50% of school districts offer transportation at this time, and it kind of varied by what model they use. And at this time, by cutting out the transportation provided to pre-K, we can extend and offer the pre-K to more students. So that's one of the things that we will communicate with our parents when they come to our roundup and then enroll in the process. But we are excited about at least offering the opportunity for a full-day program to many, many more students than we are currently. We're also looking at expanding other programs. We've been working on Forney Focus 2.0 since 2017 and really working to fill in anywhere where there is a gap of an area. Along with that, and evaluating our programs, we're also trying to fulfill an update that came out in 2019 in our gifted and talented programs. And so we know that services are supposed to be comprehensive, structured. We're supposed to serve all of our students that are listed as gifted and talented. In addition, we're supposed to also make sure we include art, creativity, leadership, and then technical education. And that's some new nuances. They've really added a lot more structure to the gifted and talented handbook and to what we're supposed to cover with our students. So you couple us trying to fulfill the needs of our community through Forney Focus 2.0, plus some of the information coming out from the latest GT work, and we are ready to expand into a Fine Arts Advanced Academics Academy and combine the two. So for 2020, we are going to open Advanced Academics Fine Arts Academy here in Forney. And we are very, very excited about this and how it's going to be able to enrich some of our students' lives. We saw a really successful model by combining all of our dual language programs this year, and what a blessing it's been for those students at Criswell. And Rachel Bonner's done a fantastic job of strengthening this program, but also enriching all of the rest of the students. It's about a 50% kind of program and 50% community. And she has enriched the whole campus with the idea of other languages and Spanish culture. And so we've really kind of gotten a great example of what a campus can do that houses a specific program, but how it can benefit all the neighborhood students. So we are going to house our Advanced Academics Fine Arts Academy at Blackburn. You can see they've got their new wing added on right there. And so we will open with 6 classrooms. So one of the things we want to do is really make sure we have a really strong curriculum, but they'll have to be taught at an accelerated pace because they'll have PE and library, and they'll also have all of the arts. So in order to make room for that kind of extra focus on fine arts, their curriculum will be accelerated and condensed in a shorter amount of time. So Academy students will develop skills in art, drama, music, dance, and piano. But in addition to those programs, we want to make sure that the non-academy students, the community students, the neighborhood students, have arts integrated into their core content. And so the whole campus kind of feels the uniqueness of housing a specialized program, which will be really fantastic for the students in there. Plus, some of the after-school opportunities will allow enrichment really to a further degree if students want to take advantage of that. So our implementation plan is to open in year 1 with 132 students in 1st and 2nd grade. And we chose those grades because 4th grade, who wants to move a kid to a new campus, and then they have to move again at 5th grade. So we looked at a group of students that we can identify right now, open up 6 classrooms to get it started. And then in the little red area, we're going to actually create a piano lab. We've gone and visited quite a few schools and looked at their piano labs and how they do it. And then that leaves another room available to have a combination of theater and dance in one room since we're starting so small. Then we'll expand out from there as the program gets larger. So we've looked at many programs, and having these programs in standard classrooms, and especially in some of the older buildings we've toured, that's pretty normal to not have to have big spaces with elementary and young children. So year 1, 1st and 2nd grade, and then we'll expand in year 2. We'll move down with kinder. We'll develop screening processes for that, and then the 2nd graders will move up to 3rd. By year 3, we'll move up through 4th grade and then have really a complete program there at Blackburn. And that really gives us plenty of time to evaluate our programs for intermediate and what do we need to do and open up to make sure these students can continue on with their arts and advanced academics education. So let's talk about just GT in general. Right now, we serve our GT students through the TPSP projects that are largely handled just by the classroom teacher during focus time. And the projects are great. There's a lot of really great material, but it has fallen on the classroom teacher to both intervene for students who are behind, then make sure they're taking care of the needs of the kids that really just are kind of on level and don't have a remediation issue, and also extend for kids who are GT, all in the same amount of time. So our GT numbers have been increasing, and you can see that there was a really big jump. We've really kind of settled in on some better processes for identification. We're not so unbalanced. We're trying to even out the amount of students per campus and then make sure our sub-pops match our identification process. But anyway, GT numbers are increasing. So we are going to start a GT pull-out program for K4. We only will have a specialized programs for the students who take advantage of that academy over at Blackburn. But on our other campuses, providing a pull-out time and a separate time just for GT students so that they can work together and meet the requirements that the GT guidelines want for students who want accelerated areas of strength and to meet their needs. So we're very excited to finally really have a program dedicated just for our gifted and talented students. And then we're really excited when we get this one, kind of this Fine Arts Advanced Academics Academy. One of the future possibilities we're looking into is then offering a STEM academy with a real big focus on STEM, math, and CTE. And by doing so, we could really meet all the areas that the GT guidelines want in the areas of arts and creativity, leadership, and then technical education. So there's a future possibility of down the line, once this one's really
is successful and we kind of see how the model works and open up a new one, is to be prepared to open up another academy. And then our students in Forney at young ages will have the opportunity for choice in their elementary years or a neighborhood school. And that really puts us on a mark with our neighboring districts that have a lot of offerings. So great possibilities for Forney ISD. Do you have any questions?
I don't hear any. Thank you very much, Dr. Weber. Moving on to item D, master planning update. Ms. Morzak and your team.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Ferris. I'm going to kind of run through all the projects that we're going to take action on tonight. I do have Jeff Fisher and Vaughn Gallagher here from Gallagher Construction, and Kip and Gary Rademacher from Huckabee. If you have any further questions as we go through, I can call them up. I'm going to stay pretty high level, though, through this presentation, and we'll get into a little more detail whenever we get into the action items. The first set of projects we're going to look at are projects that we did through the TIPS Co-op. These are smaller projects that we're trying to get pushed through the summer. So the first one is Claybon Elementary. As you know, Claybon is only one of our Triangle campuses that did not get an expansion, and so we're looking at renovating the hub there. It's going to be a little bit smaller version of what we did in the other hubs, but pretty much the same idea. It'll have a little tree in there. We'll give it a maker area, a reading area for the littles. Redo that art room to put VCT in it, so they have a large area for art, and then put a small stage up front. Redo the AV in there. So very similar to what it looks like in the larger hubs, but just a little scaled down version at Claybon. In addition, the flooring, Claybon's our oldest of the Triangle schools, and the floors in there are ready for something. So we've actually are looking at a new standard of putting carpet in our classrooms. Milliken Carpet makes a new carpet that is really designed for schools and for high traffic areas. It's moisture wicking, it's spill resistant. It actually helps teachers who stand a lot. It's fatigue resistant. In addition, it holds up really, really well. I'm actually going to show you a picture of a high school. This is Lincoln High School, and that carpet is 11 years old. Now, don't look at the design. That's not the design of the carpet we're going to use. I'm just showing you how it wears over time. So that's a high school hallway in a high school classroom. As you know, high school children are pretty hard on things, and that carpet has held up excellently for 11 years. In addition, as we've gone through different schools and looked at things, the noise difference between VCT and carpet is incredibly different. You can walk from a hallway with VCT into a hallway with carpet, and it just is calming. The quiet is just, it's amazing. So this is going to be, we're going to put this carpet, not this color, but this type of carpet in Claybon this summer. The next project we have is the Criswell Parent Loop. As you know, we have a little bit of a traffic issue over at Criswell. This is the newest image. Huckabee did a great job showing you what that's going to look like. Parents are going to come in off of Pinson and loop around that baseball field and playground around the back. As you can see, it turns into, it's double stacking, and then it turns into a split double stack right in front of the school with a little crosswalk in the middle. So the kids can unload from the cars and then go to the crosswalk and go into the building and then exit back out on Pinson. We're hoping to pull a whole lot of traffic off of 741 right there in front of the school. Help at that light. So this is happening this summer. The next one is the Culinary Arts project, and we've looked at this one before. These are just some renderings of what culinary is going to look like at Forney High School. This is an existing restaurant at Forney High. We're just doing a refresh on it. The kitchen's in pretty good shape, but the restaurant portion is not. It's just an overall floor plan showing you where everything's going to be located. The front, we're going to redo the front so that you can tell it's a restaurant called The Local. It'll have a separate entrance outside the school district, but we can still control the visitors who go in and out. So we can still have Raptor, keep them from the rest of the building, and we get to decide who comes into our school. This is a look from the door looking inside. There'll be a bar, some booths, some tables. The bathrooms are kind of back and around the corner there. This is just another view from the interior. The next project we're going to look at is this building. We're actually going to divide the administration building into several phases. The only one we're going to talk about tonight is admin phase 1. Everything on this diagram interior that is colored is going to be touched in some way. But we're going to start spring break, which we're moving everybody out Wednesday, I think, so that it can be prepped so that Gallagher can come in, Friday at 2, 3 o'clock and get going. And we're just going to do this portion right here that is boxed for Phase 1. So we're going to provide a safety and security suite in the back. We're going to redo HR to give them a little training room and some different spaces back there. And then Neil's area in athletics is going to change up a little bit. So that will be Phase 1 that will start on this Friday. The next project is a big one, and that's the new middle and intermediate school. This is just an aerial to kind of remind you of that site, of where that's going to be. That's on the new property we've just acquired. And you know that's a massive piece of property. So this diagram is kind of showing you the new middle school and intermediate is this right here. Across the way will be a future CTE center. And then there's still land here for a future elementary and then another future building back behind. So there's a lot of real estate here that we can do a lot of things with. Here's a close-up of that middle and intermediate school. The main entry is going to line up with a state on some 41. So that road that's coming in from the bottom is a state. It will come up. Then the road across the top doesn't exist yet. We'll have to name that road. And it's going to go all the way across and connect into Ranch. So once again, we'll keep people off that corner of 741 and Pinson, let people get around. You can go all the way from Devonshire to Lewis down that route. I'm going to show you a quick fly-through of the middle school and intermediate. So this building is not only stunning, it is a beautiful building. It's also a very efficient building. So as you can see, it's actually a middle and intermediate school overlapped in this center. And by doing so, we saved a lot of money on core infrastructure. It will be two separate buildings. The students will be separated. They'll have two names, two entrances, two different principals. But it does have some common areas that I'll show you as we go through. This is just a view of that main entryway. Obviously, the names of the schools will be on each side once they've been officially named. The separate entrances. This is a look inside the cafeteria. And I think this shows probably the overlap the best. This is the very large cafeteria space. It's large enough that you could feed the entire intermediate school in 2 lunches over one period, and then the entire middle school in 2 lunches over one period, which is incredibly efficient from a principling standpoint. I can't even imagine how wonderful that would be to have lunch over 1 hour. The libraries, if you look at that learning stairs, you go up, the library split, and to the right is the middle school library, to the left, or I'm sorry, to the right is the intermediate school library, to the left is the middle school library, and that's where the building's split into 2. So the students really will never even mingle unless intentionally we need them to, but it is 2 separate campuses. This is just a look at one of the library hubs. Overlooks the cafeteria, really cool design. That's that milk and carpet we were talking about on the floor there. And that's pretty much the middle school. Anybody have any questions on the middle school? Dr. Terry, did you want to add something?
No, just to kind of reiterate what you said with the overlap, really excited about the innovation that we had with the team. We ended up with over a $4 million savings, I believe, between serving lines, cafeteria spaces, tornado shelter, those types of things. We saw some really good savings, but also some really great opportunities and flexibilities for 2 different campuses to utilize space. So pretty excited about what this is looking like, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're breaking ground 1st of April.
Yes, sir. It's coming fast. The next slide is just Devonshire, which is going to be elementary 8. This is just showing you the site plan. We will get into design plan a little bit later. I'll kind of run through those slides. You have a sheet in front of you for the elementary, just so you can see the design a little bit closer. This is at the back end of Devonshire. If you go down the main entrance to Devonshire and turn left at the clubhouse, you go past a roundabout. Raven Hill is the street that runs in front of it, and that's that new elementary site. The floor plan is actually very compact, but it is very well designed. Each of the grade levels will be potted, where all 9 classrooms or 10 classrooms, if you have an off, can be together, where the teachers not only can come together and plan, but the students can actually also plan. So each one of those rectangles is a pod. It is a 2-story build. Some of our sites are pretty compact, so we needed to go up with it. The lower grades will be on the 1st floor, and then our upper grades will be on the 2nd floor. And that's just a 2nd floor cutout, kind of showing you what the 2nd floor looks like. This is a school built for true 900 from the beginning, with some spaces that we've been maybe lacking in some of our other builds for breakouts, small group intervention, some collaboration spaces for the students and for the teachers, and some special needs classrooms specifically designed for the building. We're looking at using that design or something very similar as a prototype for our next several builds. This is just a site layout for Gateway. Gateway is our potential site for elementary number 9. And then what we have been calling elementary number 10, which is really just Johnson Elementary, is slated to go in Overland Grove. So really, we'll only have 9 elementaries. This would be a replacement for Johnson, so this would still be Johnson Elementary. It's right there on FM 548. There's a sign out now in that location if you're interested in where that property is. And then finally, I just want to run kind of through the timeline for bidding for the remainder of the summer projects. March 5th, which is this Thursday, we'll have the bid for the second half of the middle school and intermediate. We're coming to you with tonight in a little bit is the first half of that bid, and that's structural and dirt work, that type of thing. This will be the remaining bid for the middle school and intermediate. Adding that pavement at Brown Middle School to kind of fix their parent loop a little bit. That bid is coming out in April. Adding the bus loop and some security at North Forney will also bid in April. Phase 2 for the administration building will bid in May, and we'll kind of talk about that next month, but that's the entrance, securing the entrance here. Animal Science Center, which is the addition to our current Ag Barn, which will become the Animal Science Center, also bids in May. The Welding and Fabrication Center at Forney High School, expansion and addition, bids in May as well. And then we'll bid elementary number 8, which is at Devonshire Elementary, in June. So fast and furious, got a lot coming at you, and a lot happening. So does anyone have any questions at this time?
Just one, Mr. Fair.
Go ahead.
Just one, and it's easy.
Yes, sir.
The carpet going to Claybon, and we're going to consider that a pilot for the rest of the district at some point?
Yes, sir. We're looking at it as our new district standard in all of our buildings.
Okay.
You know, they put that carpet in locker rooms, so in band halls. It's made for gross places. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I hear none. Thank you. Moving on then to item 8, public forum. No one signed up to speak to the board, so we'll move on then to item 9. The consent agenda. All of these were part of the board book, which most of you had in your board books to review in advance, but 9A is minutes in the February 3rd meeting. 9B is approve the budget amendment. 9C is approve the class size waiver. 9D is approve the final reading and the deletion of policy DMA local. 9E is approve the resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Forney Independent School District refunding penalties and interest on delinquent tax properties for identification number 185246 and 191685. 9F is approve the Devonshire easements. 9G is approve the purchase of band uniforms. 9H is approve the purchase of furnitures. 9I, approve the purchase of 10 buses. 9J, approve purchase of professional development with the Flipping Group. K, statement of impact forms from charter schools, one being Cityscape Schools, 2 Premier Schools. And L, approve petition for addition of certain Forney ISD land of Kaufman County Assistant District Number 1 being described as approximately 245.488 acres, including North Forney High School. The board may take action on them separately or collectively. Do I have a motion? Mr. Johnson makes a motion to approve collectively. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Regan? Thank you, Mr. Regan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, consideration and possible approval of tasking a 2020 visioning committee for the purpose of strategic planning. At this time, Dr. Judy Weber, Chief of Learner Services.
Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, and School Board, back in 2014, Forney ISD initiated a process where they brought together district employees, students, parents, community members, and they had several meetings to really evaluate where does the district want to go, what are our goals, what's our mission and vision. And what resulted from that, those meetings, were the board goals, the 6 board goals that we've had for quite some time now. Well, as an update, in 2017, a group came together over several nights, a similar kind of makeup of community members, students, parents, teachers, staff members. And they met to look at, well, here's what our board goals are, here's how much we've accomplished, and here's where we'd like to go. And this collaborative process resulted in our Forney Focus 2.0. And like I said earlier, we have done a great job watching those bars complete, move all the way over where applicable. Only a few areas really are specific to a specific grade level, but we've done a great job over the last few years now and filling in all those gaps on those programs to make sure that they were existing in all those areas. So it's time again to task a committee to bring people together, community members, students, teachers, staff, our campus administrators, and really plan where do we go from here? What's our vision for the next few years here in Forney ISD? So we're really ready to take our next step and bring a committee together. So we're ready to task a new committee to decide what's our vision for 2020 and beyond.
So Board, we've reached out and talked to you guys about some nominations. We've received some of those. We've also tasked a few of our current partners from everyone from our PTO presidents as well as some of our community partners, our pastors' groups, service organizations, and also some of our key teacher leaders. And we're reaching out to them right now to serve in partnership with some of the recommendations that you are making for this committee. I believe Kristen Zespel and Judy Weber, Dr. Weber, are accumulating that list right now. So we are asking tonight that you task this committee to move forward with some of the next steps in Forney ISD and what the future of Forney ISD looks like to help formulate some of our board goals moving forward. So as that committee is developed, then we would ask that we give them a charge moving forward throughout March and April to come together and provide some guidance and recommendation as to what our next level looks like in Forney. And we've had some incredible successes here. Obviously, we've accomplished a lot of tasks over the last 5-6 years since Forney Forward Focus was put in place, and then Forney Focus and Forney Focus 2.0. But I believe our district is ready for that next level, and what the next level of education looks like in Forney is really what we're looking to do tonight. So we are asking for your charge and your task to launch this committee forward, and we're recommending that to you this evening.
Board, you see your packet before you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion to approve the appointment of the 2020 Visioning Committee as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Do I have a second? Second. Ms. Dobbs? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, consideration possible approval of the pre-kindergarten waiver. Dr. Judy Weber again.
At this time, I'm going to ask Sandy Whitley to come up and explain the waiver process and what we've gone through. It's mostly been her work as the Executive Director of Early Childhood through 6th grade and our special programs. She's really led the work on our pre-K waiver.
Thank you. Dr. Terry, Mr. Ferris, board members. As Dr. Weber told you previously, House Bill 3 requires school districts to offer full-day pre-kindergarten starting in the 2019-2020 school year. Recognizing the burden that this places on districts, particularly districts like ours that are fast growth, the commissioner can exempt a district for 2 specific reasons. One, if it would require the building of new facilities, or 2, if it would result in fewer eligible children enrolled. Both of those would happen here in Forney. So we are in the process of asking you to submit the waiver. So in order to do that, before you can just say we're going to build or expand facilities, the state required us to solicit partnerships with public and private entities within the community. However, the partnerships would have to be with organizations that would satisfy one of these 3 requirements. On November 9th, we posted on our website a form to solicit anyone in the community that would be interested in partnering with us. We had 0 responses on that. And then on February the 13th, we hosted a community meeting. Notice was posted, much as we do for the board meetings. Again, we had no attendees, which is not surprising considering the strict regulations that they have on who would qualify. So, accordingly, we have met the requirements in the Texas Education Code to apply for a pre-kindergarten waiver for 3. Can I answer any questions?
Dr. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Just to remind you, and Ms. Weber, or Dr. Weber, I got to get used to that. Dr. Weber is presented to you earlier that we're blessed and excited to be able to move forward with a majority of our pre-K students to go full day next year. At the same time, we are still aware that that turnout could be higher than the classroom capacity that we have, and this provides us an opportunity to continue with a few half-day classrooms if need be. This waiver also waives us from the half-day setting that we are currently sitting in. So we recommend to move forward with a 3-year waiver. Hopefully we will not need that, but at this time we would like to have that as a safety net as we begin to move forward into full-day pre-K.
You've heard the presentations, Dr. Terry's recommendation. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Ferris, I just had one. Dr. Terry, are there any financial implications for having this waiver in place?
Financial implications? I do not believe that we would have any financial implications. This is just similar to a class size waiver or something like that we've approved in the past. This just gives us authority not to have 100% of our children in full-day pre-K if need be.
Okay.
Our goal is obviously to do that, but if we need that safety net based on the turnout and growth, we would have that as a safety net.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I hear no other questions. Thank you very much. May I have a motion from the board?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion to approve the filing of a pre-kindergarten waiver for 3 years as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on to item 12, consideration and possible approval for construction bids for the intermediate school number 3 and middle school number 3. This time, Ms. Kim Morsack.
So this time I'll actually ask Jeff Fisher from Gallagher Construction to come forward and present the bids to you. As we go through these next projects, I just want to remind you that any major new school build like this not only has all the construction, but all of our soft costs, FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. As we go through the smaller projects, some of that FF&E has been done separately, and I'll kind of talk through where all that budget comes from as we go through. So this is a bond project, obviously, since it's a very large middle and intermediate school. And Jeff, I'll give you the microphone.
Thank you. Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, members of the board, it's good to be with you again this evening. As Ms. Morsack mentioned, we did take bids on a portion of the middle school, intermediate school project that included the site work and some of the structural packages so that we could get a jump start on getting some work started out there, as well as some shop drawings going for some of the steel and precast concrete. So the packages that we put out for bid, received bids on February the 13th were the building concrete, the precast concrete, structural steel and erection, excavation, concrete paving on-site, concrete paving off-site, which is the new roads, and the site utilities, which included both the utilities on the school site itself as well as the utilities related to the road portion of the project. As you can see by the bid tab, we had a good turnout of bids. They were very competitive bids, and we were pretty happy with both the number that we got and the quality of the bids that we received. Probably familiar with seeing this from other projects that we've presented to you in the past. This is a condensed version of a total sheet. Obviously, when we bring the full project to you, we'll have these packages shown as previously awarded if you awarded them tonight, as well as the additional packages that are out for bid right now and bid on Thursday, as Ms. Morsack mentioned earlier. So you can see that we've got those packages that I mentioned, as well as some of the other requirements that'll be needed to get the project started, the material testing, temporary fencing, and the stormwater pollution prevention plan and installation of those materials. So, is there anything past this? Okay, all right. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody's got this evening.
Mr. Ferris.
Dr. Terry, what's your recommendation?
But we are looking at correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fisher, an under budget scope right now on all of this work on all of our bids.
Yes, that's correct. We comparing the numbers that we received with the bids versus the estimate that was put together on these overall under budget by just a little bit, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, pretty exciting to see this first round come in, so we would recommend that you accept the bids as presented.
Okay, thank you. Now questions? Mr. Andrews?
Yeah, the excavation?
Yes, sir.
You guys are setting up on CT Excavating. Their number's quite a bit lower than the other bidders. Are y'all comfortable with the scope of work that they bid and that they've not got any, it's apples to apples, right?
Yes, sir. We sat down with CT Excavating, went through the scope in detail with them, made sure that they understood all of the requirements that we put in the bid packages, and they're comfortable with their number and didn't seem to have any problems with it.
You guys worked with them before?
We have. They've done several projects for us and have always done a good job.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing no questions, I ask for a motion.
Mr. Ferris, I
Move that we approve the construction bids for the intermediate middle school as presented.
Mr. Johnson made a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13, consideration and possible approval, appropriate action to delegate authority to the superintendent to select the construction delivery method, providing the best value for construction projects. Mr. John Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. In the background, when the board packet that we delivered to you late last week, CV legal policy basically defines how construction projects and approvals go at the board level. Right now, the process is that there's about 8 or so different project delivery or project procurement methods that you can procure a construction project on. If you're going to use something other than competitive bidding, which basically has to be awarded strictly based on the bid price, you can't look at, anything else other than that. As we well know, there's a lot of factors that you'd like to consider when you're awarding contracts that just doing it on a straight bid price doesn't always get you the best value for your project. So most of the time when we do these, if we're not going, the CM agent, which is what we've done on the bond projects for the next, 5 years, that you guys approved that in prior board action. But usually when we do just in-house bid projects, we'll do competitive sealed proposals basically, and that basically allows you to not only consider price, but other things like how long the vendor's been in business and what kind of what the references say, and a lot of things that go into what really is going to make a good contract and a good successful project. So if you're going to use that, like I said, the board has to award or has to approve the procurement method ahead of going out to bid, and then you go out to bid. So that takes a board meeting. Then you go out to bid, and then the project's probably going to be over $100,000, which required a second board meeting in order for all that to take place. And so, in order to speed up some of these projects, especially in the tight time frames that we're looking at over the summer and beyond. Our recommendation from administratively is that you can delegate your authority to select the project or the procurement method for these construction projects to the superintendent, and then if any of the contracts that are over $100,000 would always certainly have to come back to you for approval. So it's not like you're sidestepping your approval on projects, because most of the time, as we joke around in the committee meetings when we're discussing construction, it's like, you can't hardly do anything for less than $500,000. So, for the most part, anything that we do, renovation construction wise is going to reach that threshold, which would require, your approval in the end. So, our recommendation is that you award you award the superintendent the authority to select the construction project procurement method as presented here. What we're currently doing is we're going through a policy audit with the TASB policy services. We're supposed to get going in full swing on that towards the middle of this month. And then what we would do probably at the conclusion of that thing is bring a local policy back on CV local, which would delegate that authority permanently to the superintendent if you so desire. So again, that's our recommendation, that you grant the approval to the superintendent to select the construction project procurement method as required by CV legal.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Dr. Terry, do you have a recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Just to reiterate what Mr. Chase said, that we will always come back to you for authority on purchasing. So this is just the ability to maneuver a little bit better and try and find a little bit more efficient approach sometimes to our construction bids. So we recommend that you approve the delegation of authority to the superintendent for construction projects.
You've heard the presentation and the recommendation by Dr. Terry. Any questions?
Just one, Mr. Ferris. How does this differ from what we're asking to approve tonight than what we just did on the middle school intermediate process? So what would be different for future projects?
So on the middle school and intermediate school, by prior board action, you guys have selected construction manager agent as the procurement process. And so the Gallagher Construction Service has a 5-year contract with us now in order for this to manage this bond project for us. They are bidding the projects, and they're coming back and giving you their recommendation. And so that's kind of what their role as our agent is. On some of these other projects, like this renovation of this admin building and this culinary project and some of these others that we're doing, that wasn't included in the bond project. We're doing that through the maintenance tax notes or the general fund or some other form of procurement. So these other little renovation projects is really what we're talking about, is selecting a method, give the superintendent, in the cases that I just mentioned, the Tips Taps Purchasing Cooperative, they have a job order contract. Gallagher has a job order contract on that purchasing cooperative. We would probably use that contract in order for them to bid these projects, and they actually are giving us a discount on their fee because right now it's 1% for these construction projects. But if we're going through these other little onesie twosie projects like we're talking about here, they've agreed to cut their fee by a couple of percentage points in doing so. So. I hope that addresses everything that you asked there, but unless if I haven't, is that clear?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Yep, I hear none. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to delegate the authority to select the construction delivery method to be used for all future construction projects to the superintendent.
Thank you, Ms. Dobbs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Green, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on then to item 14. Consideration and possible approval of the design schematic and budget for the elementary campus number 8. Ms. Kim Morzak.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. As we went through earlier in the master planning update, we are bringing you the new schematic design for elementary number 8. As I discussed, this is a 2-story building. It's 106,000 square feet, and it is a true capacity for 900. The budget on that building is $40,800,000. And tonight we're asking you to approve both the schematic design and the budget so that we can bid this project out.
Thank you, Ms. Morzak. Dr. Terry, recommendation?
Yes, sir. Recommend that you approve tonight the schematic. Just as a reminder, these are squares right now. We still have a lot of work to do. So recommend that you approve the schematic and the budget as presented.
Board, I know you've seen this, but do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
The $40,800,000, does that budget fall in line with what we were expecting when we put the bond package, when the bond package was put together?
It does. It actually, because we've accelerated the timeline on this a little bit, it's actually lower than the original amount that it was budgeted for. And just to kind of go back to what I said earlier, that does include soft costs and FF&E. So all the furniture for that building is built into that budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did save escalation costs by expediting the project. Yes, sir.
Any further questions?
The second floor where it shows 3rd and 4th, but that wing is not built, is that potential future or not?
No, that is addition. It's a 1-story addition.
One
So
story,
it's
okay.
just on the first floor. That's why it's wide out like that.
Okay, thank you.
Here, no other questions. Do I have a motion?
President Ferris, I make a motion to approve the design schematic and budget for the elementary campus number 8 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on then to item 15, consideration and possible approval of the AIA amendment with Huckabee Architects. Ms. Kim Morzak again.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. As you know, we've been with Huckabee Architects since 2017. They've done a really great job for us on all of our additions and renovations we've done, and They've now designed our beautiful new middle school and intermediate. We'd like to go ahead and amend the AIA we have with them to include the build for elementary number 8, design for elementary number 9, and Johnson Elementary, as well as the welding additions at Forney High School at this time. And that is an amendment to the original AIA as listed B132-2009. Any questions?
Thank you for that. Dr. Terry, what is your recommendation?
Mr. Ferris, I recommend that we approve the AIA amendment with Huckabee Architects as presented.
Board, you've heard the recommendation. Do you have any questions? I hear none. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion to approve the AIA amendment with Huckabee Architects as for the listed projects as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews, thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on then to item 16, consideration and possible approval of construction contracts for facilities renovations.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. These are the TIPS construction projects we discussed earlier in master planning. These are all through the TIPS purchasing co-op as bid through Gallagher Construction. These are just construction costs. These do not include any soft costs. The furniture for the buildings was included in the earlier action item for furniture. These are all maintenance tax note projects except for that Criswell parent loop, and that's a bond project. So, and obviously, it doesn't include furniture. The bids came back, and in your board brief, I think everything matches except for the administration building. At the time of the board memo, it was not to exceed $300,000. It came in, those bids came in at $272,000. So under that amount that you originally saw in your memo. So at this time, we ask that you approve the bids for Claybon Elementary's hub, Claybon's flooring, Forney High School culinary renovations, the parent loop at Criswell, and the phase 1 of the administration building.
Dr. Terry, what is your recommendation?
Recommend that we approve the construction contracts as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Terry. Any questions from the board? I hear none. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion we approve the construction contracts for facility renovations as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Is that Andrews?
Regan down there, I'm sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Well, thank you very much. Moving on to item 17, consideration and possible approval of the naming of the district facilities. This time, Dr. Terry will make our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Board, just wanted to remind you, CW Local is our driving policy behind naming of facilities. Part of that task was to ask our community for their feedback, and we did reach out to our community through board policy and received a great turnout of recommendations throughout the community. You also named a committee, and I just want to commend you. It was a wonderful group of men and women that was a very diverse cross-section of our community. I think you did a great job. They worked really well as a team to decipher the community recommendations and provide you with the list that was presented tonight. And so I would tell you that the facilities naming committee has recommended a list for you to select from for the naming of our facilities. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the process or turn it over to Mr. Ferris for any comments.
Yeah, I would just concur. The committee, which was a very diverse group across our community, they did a great job vetting all the names that were submitted from the community, and came to a unanimous vote as they worked through that, and we're very passionate about the ones that they chose. So I appreciated their support and being there to help us through this process. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the recommended list from the Facilities Naming Committee for the naming of the 3 facilities identified to begin construction in 2020. And further, to approve the naming of the 2 additional facilities recommended by the Facilities Naming Committee that will enter the design phase in 2020.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That's one. Andrews? It is majority, so it is passed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 18, consideration and possible proof of full-time equivalent positions for the 2021 school year. Mr. John Chase, Chief Financial Officer.
So as we had discussed in the budget workshop earlier tonight, our original staffing plan for next year was based on the third quarter, I believe, demographic study that we received from Templeton Demographics. Since then, we've received the fourth quarter. The number of students has actually gone up a little bit, as well as the fact that we're going to, starting that all-day pre-K program, as well as some other needs for special populations, special ed, compensatory ed, and so forth. And so what we're asking tonight is for, in addition to the 87 positions that we approved in January, I believe it is, an additional 27 positions, which would be 20 teachers, 6 instructional aides, and 1 auxiliary staff. And so that's our recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Dr. Cherry, what is your recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. We would like to recommend the approval of the additional 27 staff to keep up with our growth and also open some of these new program expansions, such as full-day pre-K.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the board? I hear none. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Andrews, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews? Have a second?
Second.
Carol?
Carol, yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on to item 19, consideration and possible approval for granting hiring authority to the superintendent through September 14, 2020. Mr. Rick Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris and school board members. In the past, we have asked the board to approve our superintendent and give him the hiring authority as we move into the peak hiring season. This proves very beneficial as we stay competitive and we can secure the best possible candidates. And in a fast growth district, as Forney is, this gives us a competitive edge. And so obviously we would ask that at our next board meeting that these personnel would be ratified by the board, but it does give him the hiring authority through September the 14th.
We've heard the presentation. Dr. Terry, what is your recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Just to reiterate what Mr. Gear has discussed, this is a blessing that you guys give us that really does help us recruit quality staff, and we're so thankful for it, and therefore recommend that we do this again this year, and we will always come back for ratification from the board. So recommend that you grant the hiring authority to the superintendent through September 14th.
Board, you've heard the motion. Do we have any further questions? I hear none. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion we grant hiring authority to the superintendent through September 14th, 2020.
Thank you, Ms. Dobbs. And second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Moving on to item 20, consideration and possible approval of certification of unopposed candidates for the May 2nd, 2020 school board election. I got so excited I stumbled over it. Dr. Terry?
Well, Mr. Ferris, I will present to you a recommendation from administration that we go ahead and approve the order of cancellation for the May 2nd, 2020 election, as we do not have any opposed candidates at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Terry.
I was on the wrong one. I turned the page.
How about number 20?
Can I retract that statement? I was excited to get to it as well. The certificate of unopposed candidates for the May 2nd. I apologize. Let's approve the certificate first, and then we'll cancel the election first after that. All right. So I do recommend that we approve the certificate of unopposed candidates for the May 2nd, 2020 school board election at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Terry. Are there any questions from the board or discussion? I hear none. May I accept a motion?
I make a motion that the board approve the certification of unopposed candidates for the May 2nd, 2020 school board election as presented and recommended by the administration.
Thank you, Ms. Green. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Carroll. Thank you very much, Mr. Carroll. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on to item 21, consideration and possible approval of canceling the school board election previously set for May 2nd. Dr. Terry.
Now, I would like to recommend that you approve the order of cancellation of the May 2nd, 2020 school board election, as we do not have any opposing candidates.
Thank you for that. Any discussion from the board? I hear none. I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Ferris, I move that we approve the cancellation of the school board election scheduled for May 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ferris, may I take one liberty real quick and just
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
congratulate Mr. Scott Regan for position 1 and Mr. Greg Ferris for position 2 for another 3-year term. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you. We're moving on then to item 22, closed session. At this time, the board will convene into closed session. It is now 8:39 p.m. No voting will take place in closed session. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes. 22A is deliberation regarding employment professional contract personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074. 22B is deliberation regarding reemployment of professional contract personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074, personnel matters. C is consultation with attorney pursuant to Texas Government Code 551071, attorney consultation. D is deliberation regarding potential purchase or exchange of real property and easements. Kaufman County, Texas pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072. And E, deliberation regarding school children, school district employees, disciplinary matter or complaint pursuant to Texas Government Code 551082, and F is deliberating regarding school board personality identifiable information about public school student pursuant to Texas Government Code 5510821. Thank you. It's 9:48, and I'll call this back into open session. Moving on to item 23, consideration possible approval of employment of professional contract personnel. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion that the board approve professional contract personnel as discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Johnson. Thank you, Matt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on to item 24, consideration and possible approval of reemployment of professional contract personnel. May I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion the board approve professional contract personnel discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Item number 25, consideration and possible approval of a resolution determining need to acquire property consisting of approximately 0.67 acres of vacant property, and B, 2.96 acres of drainage easement, and C, 1.67 acres of temporary construction easement near the intersection of FM 740 and Hillside Drive, all in the J. Lopez Survey, abstract number 286, Kaufman County, Texas, by voluntary purchase or by the use of eminent domain to condemn property if necessary. As discussed in closed session, do I have a motion?
President Ferris, I move that the board approve the resolution determining a public necessity to acquire certain property and easements consisting of approximately A, 0.67 acres of vacant property, B, 2.96 acres drainage easement, and C, 1.67 acres temporary construction easement, giving notice of official determination to acquire property and establishing procedures for the acquisition of property and easement. This resolution authorizes the superintendent to execute all documents necessary to acquire the property and easements on behalf of the district.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Andrews? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you. Then moving on to item 26, notice announcements there. There's some dates we need to discuss. Monday, March 9th is spring break, and then March 30th, middle and intermediate school groundbreakings. Please mark your calendars for that. More details to come. On Monday, April 6th, will be our regular board meeting. I will be absent, but Mr. Johnson will be leading that as vice president that evening. Item D, Friday, April 10th, and Monday the 13th will be district holidays, and then Monday, May 11th is our regular board meeting. And then, Dr. Terry, I think you have some other dates you'd like to share.
Yes, sir, thank you. In front of you guys, there should be a piece of paper with some dates listed. That's our 2020, 2021 proposed board meeting dates. Just ask that you take a look. We can go ahead and start adding these to the calendar. The reason we're sharing these with you this year, there's a lot of dates that are a little bit off because of the calendar. So specifically, August 31st is a little different than normal. That's our September meeting. The January 11th is always our second Monday in January because of the Christmas break. April 12th is the second Monday due to Easter holiday, and we've got currently a holiday scheduled on that Monday, so that is the second Monday in April. May 10th is our traditional second Monday in May for possible need for canvassing election. June 1st is also a little bit of a different date this year because of where the Memorial Day holiday falls, and that is a Tuesday. That's a Tuesday. So we are proposing that these be our board meeting dates for next year. If you do have any kind of major conflict with any of those, if you just let us know, we'd appreciate it. I'd also like to have you check your calendars for Tuesday, April the 28th.
This spring of 2020?
Yes, sir. This spring, Tuesday, April 28th. We shared with you earlier a possible groundbreaking date for the elementary that we approved tonight. And so we would like to propose to move that to April 28th at 5:30 p.m. if that works for everyone's schedule. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at that. And I would also, as you're looking, ask that you hold, if you don't have already vacations planned and scheduled. I think I've shared this with you guys, but we have a really great leadership opportunity for July 8th through the 10th this summer. If you're available, we would like to look at some Team of 8 opportunity. And it's actually a free opportunity that's been granted to us to go see a pretty innovative organization and have that be a component of our strategic planning. So if you do have something on July 8th through the 10th and cannot make those dates, if you would let Nancy know. If not, we are going to try and secure airfare for each of you. So any questions I can answer over the board meeting dates, the groundbreaking proposal on April 28th or July 8th through the 10th? All right, well, if you do have some sort of conflict that you weren't aware of tonight, if you let Nancy know, we sure would appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Then it is moving on to item 27, and it is 9:54 p.m., and I will now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.